While still our members and participants are joining, I think it's okay to just kickstart the session of today. So first of all, quite unusual situation. So I'm as well, like everyone, working from home and doing this webinar from Brussels. So I hope everything is going well today, but of course it's also an experiment. So welcome to the second webinar that XR4ALL is organizing in 2020. The topic for today will be games and entertainment. Before kicking off, I want to remind everyone that this session will be recorded and will be posted online afterwards. We are happy to see that today as well many people are joining. I see now approximately 31 participants. So yes, that's very good. Then again, of course, it will be available after. In the past, we have conducted webinars already for XR4ALL. The first one was on healthcare and the second one was on 3D tools. Both are available on our YouTube channel and on the main XR4ALL website. After today's webinar, we'll be conducting a new one on education. So if you're interested to follow us, please follow us on social media or become a member of XR4ALL on the website. So first of all, before diving into data, I want to give a bit of an introduction about myself. So my name is Leen and I'm the knowledge manager at XR4ALL. So I will introduce the XR4ALL project in more detail in a bit. Apart from XR4ALL, I'm also quite active in the XR industry. Early 2017, together with San Francisco-based the VR Fund, we have published the first industry mapping for Europe. Also, I'm co-founder of Women in Immersive Tech Europe, which is a non-profit featured by a very popular Facebook group and page. For the women here joining the session, please become a member of WIT Europe. Last but not least, I'm also founder of Lucidweb, a startup active in distribution of immersive content, specifically via the browser. We're based in Brussels and working with lots of enterprises and agencies across Europe. Today, I'm co-hosting this session with Bobby Thandi, the founder of XR Games. XR Games is an award-winning game studio based in Leeds and specialized in VR and AR. You might know them for releasing the Sony PlayStation exclusive Angry Birds VR Under Pressure in August 2019. It was voted by the public as a TIGA Game of the Year 2019 finalist, by experts as a TIGA Best Social Game 2019 finalist, and Forbes gave it the accolade of the best for entertaining the kids. As for the agenda of today, so first of all, I will give an introduction about XR4ALL and as well the landscape study we conducted last summer already. Then we will do a deep dive of the data available, the investment analysis in general, so across many verticals, and then we go into more detail related to games and entertainment. Then I will give the floor to Bobby Thandi, who will give insights in his own journey in fundraising for his company XR Games. And then there will be a live Q&A at the end. So hopefully we'll manage to do everything within 1 hour so we can finish in time. So for XR4ALL and the landscape study, first of all, a little bit more about us. So XR4ALL is a project funded by the European Commission under Horizon 2020. Why? Because the Commission realized that there were several problems hindering the XR industry. So you see the problems and also the solutions. So I think one of the biggest problems is that the XR landscape is quite fragmented and there is strong competition coming from the West as well as the East. A lack of a European developer platform, an investment culture that is quite risk averse, no common research agenda, weak links between research and market, and lack of industry knowledge. So what is XR4ALL tackling and what are the solutions? So first of all, I think it's quite clear that we try to build a strong community. So please, like I mentioned before, join XR as a member on our website, so you'll be invited to all the industry events that we're organizing. There is as well an open call that we continually feature. So the first cohort actually is ongoing, and we opened up a second cutoff date, which will be in June. This open call allows you to receive funding from the Commission for your proof of concepts in XR. Working towards a common research agenda, a map of funding sources for XR technologies, and as well more visibility for what's happening in the market today in Europe. So XR4ALL is not just Lucidweb, it's as well a consortium of other partners. So in fact, we're 5. It's Europe Unlimited, Stereopsia, BCOM, Fraunhofer, and then as well us. So BCOM and Fraunhofer are well-established research institutes. And then we are also working with our Europe Unlimited and Stereopsia, who have a lot of expertise in matching as investors with startups and in general organizing events across Europe. Without going in too much detail, of course, all the data that we're presenting is based upon a certain methodology. So it has been a combination of as well qualitative analysis as quantitative analysis. I think the most important element to note is that for the quantitative analysis, we collaborated with Dealroom, as they have a certain expertise in analyzing or tracking data related to companies in Europe. Then again, we do want to acknowledge immediately that the data set is not complete. So of course, if you mix different data sets, it's quite difficult to have a continuous data set available for all variables. So the most of the analysis that we'll present today is based upon Dealroom data. So let's immediately dive in. So one of the, this is actually a key funding takeaway slide. Although that the analysis is done from Q1 2015 to Q2 2019, the data here indicates the difference between 2018 and 2017. So immediately you see that there is actually a decrease in funding in that time period. Of 62% on the level of funding. On the other hand, we immediately want to add that the data is quite impacted by including Improbable into the data set. So Improbable managed to raise funds for 500 million across the years. So of course, if you take that out, then the decrease is a lot less impactful. So you see basically that a couple of companies are featured. We have Improbable, MindMaze, Ultra Haptics, and Cubic Motion and Vario. On the level of top investors, we see mostly European initiatives like Horizon, Eurostar, Fireware, but for example as well, Sisu Game Ventures and Boost VC. On the right of the slide, you see a bit more details related to countries with the highest number of deals. So the first one is United Kingdom, secondly Sweden, and then France. On the level of categories, 3D tools, games and entertainment, and enterprise were the verticals that where startups raised most funding. On the level of key exit takeaways, there is a slight decrease of 4.2% comparing 2018 and 2017. Top exits are by Tobii, Blipar, Starbreeze, and top acquirers are Pearl Abyss, Starbreeze Studios, and then SnapIC, the company behind the brand Snapchat. Again, not going into too much detail here, but this data is all available on the XR4ALL website. As for data, like I said, we used data sets by Dealroom. So here you have a bit of an overview of the data points. So in the mix, we have more than 748 startups. 451 investors led funds in Europe in XR over a total of 357 rounds. If we look at the geography of the startups that are part of the study, we see that most of the startups are basically based in Western Europe. That doesn't mean, of course, that Central European countries don't feature startups active in XR, but they are just less documented across these data sets. Again, the data pool, but then in terms of vertical, we see that most of the startups identified by the data sets have been tagged according to 3D tools, then games and entertainment, then enterprise, sorry, games and entertainment, agencies, healthcare, education, user input. If we look at the market, you can see that definitely for Europe, B2B, so the purple color is the most common. Then again, for games and entertainment, we do see that B2C models are more applicable. If we take a step further from the data set and looking at the analysis part, we see that on the level of investment rounds, most of the rounds, almost 70%, are marked by either a seed round, an angel round, or a grant. So this is again across verticals, not specifically for games and entertainment, but I think this is widely known for Europe, is that for startups, it's relatively easy to find money in the first stages of funding, and less easy if the rounds become bigger. And this is also the case, of course, for VR and AR. If we look at the investors, we see, yes, the European Commission with different instruments being very active. Then Sisu Games Ventures, Business Finland, Boost VC, Wyra, Almi Invest, Amadeus Capital, and Enterprise Ireland amongst the most active ones. Again, across verticals, geography of startups, like I mentioned, mostly Western European countries. If we then compare in the next step the number of the verticals and then the number of transactions in these verticals, you can see interesting statistics appear. For example, that for 3D tools, there is a high number of transactions, but also the total funding in that vertical is quite high. This in contrary, for example, to enterprise and healthcare, where there are a relatively high number of transactions, but the number of the total amount of funding that has been disclosed is quite low. Again, available on the site. I'm going to immediately go to games and entertainment, because I think a lot of people are actually here because of this particular topic. So as for games and entertainment, in the analysis, we saw that 87 startups basically are part of the analysis, where we see the country, UK is a country with hosting relatively most of the startups. If we look at the investment rounds, we see that for gaming specifically, it's a bit the same across the other verticals. So mostly seed rounds, Series A, seed rounds, but as well Series A, early VC and late VC, which is a bit different in comparison to the overall slide across verticals I just presented before. If we look at the top investors, we see that most of the investors are based basically in the Nordics. So we have Sisu Game Ventures and InVenture, both based in Finland. And then we have Back in Black Capital and Bonnier Ventures based in Sweden. For example, then again, BetaWorks and Broadway Video Ventures are not based in Europe, they're based in the US. So where are startups based that have successfully received funding? So we see that in comparison, Sweden hosts most of these startups. In the second place, Finland, then France, Iceland, Spain, and the United Kingdom. If we look at the top startups according to analysis who received funding, and of course in this time period, we see that Cubic Motion received most funding with 21.8 million. Secondly, Resolution Games with 12.15, and third companies and Dreams with a funding of 10.6. We added some slides to the analysis where you have more information related to when they're founded, where they're located, and which titles in VR gaming they produced. For example, Cubic Motion produced God of War, Spider-Man, and Apex Legends. Resolution Games, Attack of the Squirrels in 2019. What we also wanted to definitely give more visibility to is the fact that some of these companies have as well a quite diverse C-level board. For example, Dreams, where the CFO is Julie Parmenter. In the next slide, we also feature Wardex, where the CEO is Nikki Lanen. So yes, all these data will become available. You see as well here XR Games. So that is immediately the introduction to our next speaker. So yes, I think here, I think we can open the floor now to have the presentation by Bobby. We invited Bobby here today to give a bit more overview of course, his business, his unique positioning, but as well trying to learn with him his journey through fundraising for his personal company. So first of all, hi, Bobby.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, definitely.
Excellent. And is my screen full screen for yourself?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent, superb. Thank you very much for that introduction and for your presentation, most insightful. So hi, my name is Bobby Thandi. I'm the founder and CEO of XR Games. We're a game studio making console and mobile games with a specialism in VR and AR. So today I'm going to present on Angry Birds Under Pressure, designing VR for family fun. So you may think, what on earth has this got to do with investment, and how is this going to help me understand how best I can apply for investment or pitch my studio? Well, what this presentation will do, it's only about 10 minutes in length, but it'll give an insight into how XR Games think about design problems and solutions. And I find being able to articulate your problems and solutions in a narrative wrapper helps you stand out amongst other studios aiming to secure funding from investors. In other words, when pitching to investors, think about what is your narrative. What problem and solution can you cover off in a story? Because when I got feedback from investors that I progressed forward with, they always came back to the fact that I was able to present XR Games in a narrative way, where it's almost like telling a story. And that really resonated with those guys. So yeah, let me dive into the presentation, show you how I present XR Games, and then we can go to a Q&A afterwards. So in the first instance, at XR Games, our mission is XR for everyone. The reason for this is simple. Extended reality technology will eventually lead to virtual interfaces that are basically identical to those we use in real life. Take Job Simulator, a game about picking stuff up. Can you pick stuff up? If so, you can play the game. Animals, cats obviously can't pick stuff up and they can't do it, but people can and people do. But we're some way away from technology that can perfectly stimulate real-world interactions. But plenty of games and apps prove that what is currently available in VR is enough to promote simple, fun, transparent interface experiences. There's no reason to procrastinate. We want to make cool games for everyone, and we want to make them now. Some even say that once XR technology advances, it'll become indistinguishable from real life, and that's when we'll prove out the simulation theory. Or we might be living in a simulated world already, and that's what these smart folks think.
We're living in simulation.
Is that better?
I find it hard to argue against that possibility.
Now you can see a video game that's photorealistic, then eventually those games will be indistinguishable from reality. How do we know that that didn't happen in the past and that we're not in one of those games ourselves?
So maybe we are, maybe we are not, but that's definitely the future that we're heading towards, in my personal opinion. There are already VR headsets out there that are stated to have human eye resolution that are meant to be coming out this year. So maybe the future's closer than we think. But for now, you know, XR Games has a simple goal. We simply want more people in VR, because I, along with Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, and others, believe VR and AR will become the next major computing platform. But it's going to take a minute before the form factor decreases to a pair of spectacles, or even better, when you're next in the opticians and you're choosing your different lens, that you'll have an anti-glare, an anti-scratch, and perhaps even a VR and AR add-on. That's the future where we believe AR and VR will become ubiquitous. And you can tell from the form factor that's decreasing and becoming better, and with hand tracking that we're beginning to make the correct steps towards that future. And even earlier this year, Mojo Vision showed the media the world's first true smart contact lens, which features a 0.018-inch micro LED display that allows you to wear it directly over your eye. So whether it's a pair of XR spectacles or contact lenses, at XR Games, we believe it will become ubiquitous once the form factor improves. Until then, we're improving our VR game development skills, with each game being more fun, more immersive, and making better use of VR technology. Our latest game, Angry Birds VR Under Pressure, which was made in collaboration with our awesome partners Rovio and Sony Pictures Virtual Reality, is a testament to this improvement. For example, we were voted, as mentioned by Leen, by the public as a Tiger Game of the Year finalist, by experts as a Tiger Best Social Game finalist, and by Forbes as Best for Entertaining the Kids, in addition to an array of other great accolades, some of which are highlighted here. So now I'd like to talk about how we designed and developed this game to deliver for VR for family fun. But first, what problem were we trying to address? Nowadays, especially now under lockdown because of COVID-19, we find families and friends are spending more time alone together. I'm sure some of you folks have experienced this too, whereby I personally was looking around my living room, and it pained me to see my eldest playing Fortnite on her Nintendo Switch, my youngest playing YouTube on her iPad, and my wife playing Candy Crush on her phone, while I was on my work phone doing work emails. Similar to this image here. We appear, in my opinion, to have an addiction to our device when we should really be relishing our time together and having fun. And I imagine a few folks have experienced this too, not playing VR outdoors, that's a little bit weird, but being with your friends in a social setting, and one of you puts on a VR headset. Now the group has become isolated from the VR player, and the VR player from the group, albeit in an alternate reality. So we believe we've come up with a solution, a couch co-op VR game that uses Sony PlayStation's social screen technology. So when I was starting to put together the components parts for the solution, I felt first we needed a world famous intellectual property that would work for all ages, hence working with the great guys at Rovio with their Angry Birds IP. That in itself was almost a 1.5 to 2 year journey to get to a contract stage, and probably save that for a separate presentation, but we got there eventually. Second, we needed technology that would facilitate social play and also enable kids younger than 12 to join in the fun, as not all parents allow their kids under 12 to play in VR, as per the recommendations by the platform holders. To this end, we settled on Sony PlayStation's social screen technology. This enables one player to use a VR headset, while up to 3 other players use DualShock controllers and the TV screen. Now, the whole family could play together towards a common goal, which is great because my kids constantly fight, especially when they're competing. The winner is buzzing and she's very happy and gloating, whilst the loser, normally my youngest daughter, is sad and upset. So I'm most pleased when my girls play this game, and as a family, we all work together towards a common goal, and we share in the win, and everyone's contribution helps us succeed together, or we fail together. But essentially, it results in no fighting when I've been playing this with the family. We may do some blame calling on whose fault it was that we died, but normally it's high fives and smiles all around. So just to give you an insight into this game, if you've not seen it, here's the trailer.
It's time to put aside old grudges. Frenemies unite!
Come in peace!
In the Angry Birds Movie 2 Under Pressure VR game. The manic multiplayer experience. Where teamwork saves the day. Gather your flock to watch the feathers fly. With the Angry Birds Movie 2 Under Pressure VR game. Available now from the PlayStation Store.
Excellent. So this is a captain's view in VR, and they can use their Magna Shot, which is our take on the Angry Birds Slingshot, to grab treasure from the sea. And all the captain's task involves the Magna Shot, which is this game's version, as I say, of the Angry Birds Slingshot. It sucks stuff up as well as throwing things out, including the crew. So if you're my daughter, you'll grab Dad and you'll and your sister and fling them both into the furnace and burn them and then howl with laughter. Fortunately, the game believes in reincarnation, so players simply return to the deck after disappearing in the furnace. It's actually a very useful mechanic when you need to throw things into the furnace. You can simply hold up a box and the captain can grab the character who's holding the box, throw them into the furnace. So it is a useful tactic. But an unintended benefit that created a lot of laughter is when people realized you could actually just throw the character in there themselves. So this is what we found to be really fun as well. The crew player and the captain can't do the same things, therefore they need to collaborate. So the TNT can be thrown into the furnace by the crew, but only the captain can blow up the furnace before the timer reaches 0. In this video here, what the captain succeeds on the right-hand side but fails on the left, resulting in friendly abuse from his crew who now need to fix the submarine. So the major problems that we encountered can be summed up as technological and game design problems. So for example, the biggest tech problem we faced, and this is important when presenting to your investors, talking about the challenges and problems that you've faced and how you overcame them. Every day as a founder, I'm sure lots of you guys can relate to this as well, is that you encounter problems every single day that you need to overcome. And quite often they are problems that you've never faced before, and nor do you have the full information to solve the problem itself. But having the right mindset to approach problem solving is a matter that you need to clearly get across to investors. So in this instance, one of the biggest tech problems we faced was maintaining 60 frames per second. This is difficult because the game renders 3 screens at once, obviously 2 in the eye and 1 for the TV screen. And it's essential for comfort that it maintains 60 frames per second. And it's a testament to XR Games' highly skilled tech team that no one feels ill in our game. Now, I'm not qualified to talk about the code, so I'll leave that to my talented developers. But to that end, my dev team have just finished up a blog piece on all the tech challenges that we encountered and how we overcame them. And for those of you who are interested, my contact details will be at the end of the presentation. I'll happily share those in a blog post. But I'll just touch on a couple of highlights very quickly. So one of the specific recommendations that the blog post includes is something called spreading the work. So we've realized that serious frame spikes can be caused by a multitude of effects happening at once, such as sounds, animations, UI updates, etc. This will result in your frame FPS dropping below 60 and your game being rejected by PlayStation when you submit it for VR consultation. That's when PlayStation check your game for comfort, amongst other things. The reason being that when the FPS drops below 60, it causes discomfort for your players. So they simply do not allow that to happen at all throughout your game. So to avoid this, write your code in an event-driven style, which spreads the work across frames, and you'll notice that the user will never know. Further in the blog post that I mentioned, we had extensive optimization that was needed to reach our target frame rates. We took it upon ourselves to carefully consider how best to work under these restrictions ahead of time. For example, the PlayStation has the power of 3 screens, as I mentioned, 2 in the VR headset, 1 in the TV screen. This means you're attempting to make a console game with a third of the processing power of the PlayStation 4. By thinking of these restrictions, it allowed us to develop a social screen game with little to no detrimental effect to overall quality, focusing on trying to create a fun, interactive multiplayer experience along with strong graphical fidelity and user-friendly gameplay design. In order to do that, we always had to put performance at the front of our mind. And on the game design side, a major difficulty was communicating information via 2 different views simultaneously. So everything had to be designed for both the VR view and the TV view. And for different players with different tasks and different responsibilities. It was a total mind bend for our game designers. For instance, we have 2 interfaces, the VR and the TV. So our tutorial has to teach both simultaneously, which was really a genuine pain. But fortunately, Richard Boone, head of game design, has also written a great guest blog piece on PlayStation's website about much more detailed design challenges and how we overcame that. Again, if you're interested, feel free to get in touch with me and I'll link you to it. So the end result, what was it? I'm pleased to say that it was a lot of laughter. This was from user test in home. And it was an absolute delight to see people laughing and having fun. This is a visual from user test in the studio. And just to hover a moment on user test, I find I've come from a market research background in a previous life. And I always found in qualitative user testing, whenever you'd ask a question to most folks when they're analyzing a new piece of software or a new product, that they were inclined to give their opinions that felt sugar-coated because they didn't want to upset you, they didn't want to let you down. So what I like to look out for in user tests is, how are the people actually reacting? Are they leaning in? Do they have a big smile on the face? Are they enjoying it? Or do they look disinterested? Do they look bored? Are they keen to kind of for you to take it off them? Or are they taking the headset off before they're finishing the task? But as you can tell from this visual, you can't ask people to act like this. You can't ask them, they can't be faking it. It was genuine bellyfuls of laughter. And to have captured this was an amazing an achievement for the talented team at XR Games. In addition to, although we'd set out to design VR for family fun, it was actually cool to see the game resonate even with university students. Here's some footage of the guys playing, if the mic will allow it.
Boom! Oh my god, there's some readers actually huge. Hey boys, what is I got? I've got a mad ball. What does I do with that?
And also, I was very fortunate to go on a mini world tour with PlayStation and being part of their booth. So I had the pleasure of watching hundreds of players from different countries all laugh and have fun, whether that was at Comic-Con in Montreal, where the players played the game in French, or Chile, or here at Game XP in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, where folks played the game in the Portuguese language setting. And it's simply amazing to see the game work across multiple different languages. And it was also cool to be placed next to Iron Man VR on the PlayStation booth. And if you guys haven't played it, appreciate it, actually it hasn't even been released yet, but if you ever get a chance to play it when it comes out or at a demo booth, highly recommend it. They've absolutely nailed the flying mechanic without you feeling sick whatsoever. And now I'd like to wrap up on a serious note before we go into the QA. XR Games has been very fortunate to be provided with great support from Sony Pictures Virtual Reality, PlayStation, and Rovio, which is great for a startup such as XR Games. And without them, it would have been much harder to deliver this project on time, on budget, and to rave reviews from critics. So thank you very much. That's the end of the presentation. I'll say if you want links to any of the blog posts or articles I mentioned, please get in touch. And yeah, the contact details are here on screen. So hopefully this short presentation illustrates how I pitch XR games to investors in terms of presenting a problem, presenting a solution, and definitely highlighting problems you've encountered to evidence to investors that how you can overcome these problems that you face.
Thank you, Bobby. That was very insightful. Thank you for taking the time to go through these
You're most welcome.
I think it's good on the level of timing. We have another 20 minutes. So I will ask a couple of questions first. But meanwhile, I hope everyone sees that there's an opportunity to ask questions in Zoom. There's a Q&A button that you can start asking questions, and we'll then read them out loud, and we'll try to answer them. So the first question basically is related to fundraising. So would it be possible to highlight the amount of funding you raised so far, and describe the journey to get the funding basically signed off?
For sure. So there's 2.1 million raised so far. And I guess going back to day one, so XR Games was born in 2017 when I was the vice president of digital at Dubbit, which is a game studio based in Leeds. And you know, we were making games for the likes of Mattel and DreamWorks and BBC and Cartoon Network and PBS Kids, etc. And I'd been approached by Electronic Arts, and I was headhunted to head up one of their studios. And I'd been through a 6-month recruitment process and been presented with an offer which was amazing. But the owners of Dubbit were good friends of mine, and they'd given me an amazing platform and amazing support for me to grow my profile and get promoted throughout the organization and be given lots of autonomy and lots of responsibility. And more importantly, you know, they're very good friends of mine, Ian Douthwaite and Matthew Warner, the two co-founders of Dubbit. And because I had a good relationship with them both, I didn't want to leave. I wasn't looking for this job. So I sat down with them and explained what had happened. And what they said next, I wasn't really ready for. They were like, look, we're aware that your dream is to set up your own game studio. So rather than you going off and working for a large studio, let us help you get to your dream goal, which is having your own studio. So you'll be the founder. You can pick your own team from the folks from Dubbit, add your own personnel, and let us help you set up your own studio. Here's a $100,000 seed capital check. And this will give you the time and space to go out there and raise VC funding. So that's the catalyst for the start and how I got my initial 100K check. So that was in about March 2017, and it took a good 6-7 months for me to then close the deal for VC funding for 1.9 million. That in itself was quite a journey, but when we signed it, felt very happy and very ecstatic. And the first tranche was paid, which was 500K, which was fantastic. But then it wasn't an easy ride whatsoever. Within a few months of receiving this funding from the VC, the fund became illiquid. And now I was left with 1.4 million less than what I thought I had. I'd already started the development of Angry Birds. So it was a very stressful few months whereby I had to maintain the development of a major project and contract that we committed to, while at the same time I had to go out there and raise funding. But I'm very pleased that my initial investors took it on the chin, backed me to go out and find new funding, and trusted that I'd be able to succeed there. Dubbit was very grateful and generous in helping cover salaries and overheads when I was unable to do that. And again, felt confident enough to trust me to go out there and raise funding. So I was very happy, as you could imagine, when in December last year, we raised 1.5 million from Praetora Ventures alongside an earlier investor called ACT Capital Partners, which allowed me to obviously pay off any old debts, previous debts, and set up our new studio, and now kind of expand the team. We've taken on quite a few new staff now. But yes, it was a difficult year, to say the least, last year. Lots of late nights, lots of working hard, but that hard work, paid off in the end. But hopefully, again, problems and solutions seems to be the bread butter of any entrepreneur and founder. And as long as you've got the grit and determination to succeed, I think that'll really resonate well with investors. And another side benefit of when I went out there and fundraising, I just want to touch on a couple of things. Some people use introducers and pay introducers to kind of go out there and do the legwork, help raise the funding, and then the founders only have to come in to perhaps go to kind of final meetings. I resisted that. I tried it once or twice, but I found if I was to agree to work with an introducer, I had to hand over all my investor contacts. They wouldn't share their investor contacts with me. So I almost felt like I was helping grow their investor network and I wasn't receiving anything. So I felt it was a gamble and it's a risk, but I thought, let me do the legwork, let me go and build up my own investor network. Although a lot of investors says, you're too early, we love what you're doing, but you're too early, I'd managed to create a bank of these investors who said that. And when they saw I'd raised the 1.5 million and the press release went out regarding that, and they saw further press coming out from a result of that funding, they've all got in touch in terms of the ones who were keen to stay in touch. And my Series A round, even though I've not even started thinking about that or wanting to do that, it's already oversubscribed. So I think all that hard work is really going to pay dividends moving forward from the positive feedback I've been receiving so far.
Okay, thank you for sharing that already. I think, yeah, mentioning that you started with the objective of 1.9 million and then having this VC being liquidated must have caused a lot of stress.
And it's probably fair to say as well, it's stress that I felt a need to protect from my team. I'd obviously explain as much as I could, but you know, I find as a founder, in a day, in an hour, you can be going from the highs of highs to the lowest of lows. And I don't think that's fair to share with your team on a daily basis because it's like they're not sure exactly where they are. So instead of that, I would give regular updates, maybe fortnightly in terms of where I'm at. And then I could always smooth out the erratic experiences that a founder encounters on a day-to-day basis, even on an hourly basis.
I think that's very good advice to be able to flatten the impact for the team. For if I pronounce it right, Protura Ventures and ICT Capital Partners specifically, how ACT Capital, sorry. How were you introduced to them?
Excellent question. So Protura Ventures, so XR Games applied to be part of an accelerator program called the NatWest Accelerator Program. It's a large bank in the UK, and they have supported 10,000 entrepreneurs, and they have a accelerator program. I applied to be on there, and we were selected to be on there. Unfortunately, the person who runs the entire program, Daniel Burton, is a brilliant mentor and advisor, and he was my direct coach, and he was able to introduce me to Protura. And as a result of being on the accelerator program, we were then identified and selected to go into their scale-up program, which is only for a selected number of game studio startups. And further along the line, we've been ranked 9th out of all 10,000 entrepreneurs and startups that have been supported by NatWest. And that was, again, that was some great publicity that came out a couple of months ago. But again, so NatWest definitely apply for accelerator programs. You never quite know how they're going to help and support, but the introduction to the investors and the great press we've had from being ranked so highly within their network has been most useful. ACT Capital, the managing director there is Adam Schoff. Fortunately, Adam and I's relationship goes back almost 8 years. He used to help represent Asia and Australia for Dubbit in terms of BD and strategy. And because Adam and I had worked together for so many years, he knew exactly what I was like. And when he set up a fund, he wanted XR Games to be the first check that receives money because of the relationship I had with him already. So yeah, you know, nothing beats a warm introduction, or better than a warm introduction, obviously, if you know the investor personally, and they know how you handle problems and can come up with solutions.
Okay, I think that's definitely also one of the objectives of XR4ALL is to find a way to do the matching better. So it's a good confirmation that accelerator programs do work in this case, did work for you.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take one question just in between before we go to the next question of attending. So someone raising the question about where the data and the graphs that I've presented before will be available. So we will make everything available on the XR4ALL website, and we will also tweet about it. So it will be quite easy to find this data after the session of today. So the next following days, it will be definitely available. And there's a second question related to, I think more to you, Bobby, someone who's asking how they can be involved in a project voluntarily and have fun at the same time. So I guess it's more related to your work.
Absolutely. There's a number of ways in which that can happen. So number one, I would recommend going to XR Games website. On there, you can see a list of jobs that we currently have open and vacant. So I think we've just taken on 5 staff in the last couple of months. The only role outstanding now is art director. If you're not an art director and you want to kind of get involved on a voluntary basis, we always welcome having more user testers. So we're always looking to build our database of user testers. So I think that'd be an amazing way for you to get involved and have fun and get an insight into games during development for sure. So please do get in touch via the website or via my email address, and we'll definitely get you involved somehow.
Maybe a next question. So yes, we've seen in the analysis of startups across Europe that a lot of startups are normally, they have 2 or 3 co-founders. Like you, I'm also managing a startup as a sole founder, and I'm experiencing a lot of challenges, advantages and disadvantages. Could you maybe specifically for your startup highlight what has been good, but also more challenging, the fact that you are managing the company on your own?
For sure. I definitely have the heads of, so head of game design, head of development, head of product, head of business development, head of finance, and head of production as well. That's my kind of management layer. Then I have a senior management layer with guys who have been there since day one in terms of my head of game design and head of product. I guess I class them almost as co-founders, even though it's not written in their title, and we'll share thoughts and ideas before it cascades down into the rest of the company. However, in terms of founders who are on an equal footing and with whom you can share problems that you have with, yes, I don't have that. And as a sole founder, you have to carry a lot of that weight on your own shoulders. I do, however, feel blessed to have an amazing board of directors. So, in addition to Adam and Mark and Ian and Matthew, Ian and Matthew from Dubbit that I've worked with a long time, over 6 years, and Adam and Mark, who I'm building up a very great relationship with, I can kind of lean on my board. We have monthly meetings, and I have to prepare, along with my head of finance, a board pack. And it may feel like a too high a frequency on a monthly basis, but what that means is I can bring issues that the board needs to resolve on a monthly basis. That said, on a daily basis, I'm on WhatsApp with Adam, with the investor majority, Adam and Mark, and we're always chatting through ideas of how to kind of improve stuff, how we can solve problems. So although I don't have fellow founders per se, the board definitely acts like people who have my best interest at heart and want nothing but the business to succeed. I've read lots of stories and articles where co-founders fight and have been fighting, and it causes disruption to the business and this kind of breakups that are harder than marriages. So I feel grateful I'm not going through that. And I have a board whose only sole interest is to see XR Games succeed. So I think that's a very positive plus to have. The negative side, obviously, in the studio every single day, you don't have folks there that can help solve some of the problems that are kind of financial, commercially related. Any problems to do with tech and game design, my guys are absolutely brilliant at, and they can solve those. But on the commercial side, again, you know, as I say, fortunate to have the board there. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, definitely. Maybe the next one is a bit more related to the crisis that we're all faced by right now. So would be interesting to hear your point of view on the impact of COVID-19 on your business, but maybe as well in general, the entire gaming landscape.
For sure. Very good question. So I was in San Francisco when the lockdown happened in San Francisco. We were out there for GDC. We just landed, and that's when Donald Trump had announced lockdowns taking place. So we kind of scrambled, cut the trip short, and got back. And the day fortunately that week, we'd done a trial run for the studio to work from home on that Monday. But by the time I'd landed back in the UK, the entire studio was working from home, and my production team doing a great job in ensuring everyone's set up, everyone's got the right technology, excuse me, right technology, and they've been able to work from home. And I think we're blessed that game developers, game designers, and some artists are quite, you know, almost prefer communicating via Slack rather than face-to-face. So I think the medium of communication works well for game developers and game artists and producers and designers. So that's a big plus. We're okay with the communication. We're very fortunate that we can continue to build games whilst working remotely. It's not like we're trying to manufacture a product that means you're in a factory. The big downside is the conversations that you have when you may be making a cup of tea or a coffee and you meet someone from a different department that you don't normally sit next to. And it's those kind of moments that just happen by accident where you can ask them, hey, what are you working on? And that might spark an idea, and it may lead to a flurry of potential ideas of how to progress a situation further forward. I miss that as a founder, and I think the company misses that as well. So there's no impact on the schedule of the games we're making. We're still going to be on time and on track to deliver our next big project by Christmas. So that's good news. But I think we're missing out on all the things that happen by accident by just speaking with your colleagues. And personally, I'm a huge fan of, you know, being in a meeting room, and, you know, there's only so much verbally said, and there's lots you can take from body language. And I think you miss that as well. So when it's a very tough problem to solve, and although we can do video conference calling, I think it just becomes a little bit harder to do that versus being sat in a room and being able to do that. Looking at consumer habits and spending and gaming, you know, we're fortunate in the home entertainment space. So everyone being on lockdown has been absolutely fantastic for gaming. I think Steam had the most record number of concurrent viewers as the lockdown happened. Game sales are going through the roof. Our Angry Birds sales are increasing. Just today in VR Scout, they were referenced a great family VR games, and they mentioned Angry Birds as well, because it's really a great game that brings families together and you can all have some fun. So I think, you know, the lockdown's been great for game development, and then that's been further reiterated from the number of investors who have reached out to me recently talking about whether we want to do a Series A round, because they're seeing that gaming is a hot market right now. And other friends of mine who are founders of studios and who are fundraising are having similar stories, in the sense that investors can see gaming is fantastic because it's involved in the home entertainment space. And since there's no exit strategy for COVID-19, or it may occur, come back in the future, they definitely see a desire and a wish to invest in home entertainment.
I wish we could continue the conversation, but in less than a minute, this webinar will finish. So I also think, thank you for sharing your insights, Bobby. I also think that the data that I've presented in the beginning was, of course, going from Q1 2015 to Q2 2019. And we saw some negative numbers there on the level of fundraising. I do believe, I think XR industry is one of those industries that might have a positive impact of what is happening today. So I think I agree with you, and of course you can already see it with an oversubscription on your Series A. So congratulations already for that. But we have to leave here. So thank you very much for sharing your insights. Thank you for everyone attending and asking questions. I do believe we answered most of the questions coming from the live Q&A. Keep an eye on our social channels for the data, and become a member of XR4ALL. Thank you, Bobby, and hope to see you.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
All the best, guys. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.